You guys have to understand that getting good grades doesn't get your foot in the door, but it might get you in the same state as the door. Today I'm spilling the tea. This is actually coffee, lukewarm coffee. But why does my voice sound so weird? But today I will be spilling the secrets on how to get into any college you want, including the top colleges. I'm talking about every single secret there is in the book and off the book. So if you'll buckle up and get on this ride with me, you will come off of it an admitted student to your dream school. If you want to see my personal stats that got me into Columbia, Brown, Northwestern, and a bunch of other schools, I have a video about that. If you'd like to see my main Common App essay or my supplemental essays, I have some videos on those. All right, let's get right into this. First things first, let's just start with your application. So the first thing that the admissions officers will look at is the context of your application. This usually isn't talked about that much, but it is very important. First, where are you from? If you're from some random state like Iowa, they're more likely going to be looking at you among fewer applicants. If you're applying to the Ivy Leagues, any smaller state that's not really on the East Coast will have likely fewer applicants to those schools too. So you will be a little bit more competitive because you're from a rarer state. Next, how will you enrich the campus diversity? Are you from a rural area, a place with geographic value, a unique culture? Do you speak an uncommon language? Do you have legacy? Are you a accredited athlete? So for these, this is kind of unfair. If you've read the book Unfair Advantages by
Ash Ali and Hassan Kuba,
they talk about how things you're born into that are not necessarily your fault can be used to your privilege, and in this case things like your culture or your geographic location or anything else like that can be used to your advantage in a way, but it's not the make or break of your application by any means. Are you first generation / low income? If you're from a poorer socioeconomic background, they will not compare you to a person who is super mega wealthy and has had access to anything they could have dreamed of. Next, they will look at the context of your school. What did you have access to growing up? For example, my school had no APs, so they weren't going to compare me to a person who's had 33 AP courses. They were like, okay, this girl had no access to APs. Let's see how she did on standardized testing and on her grades and other things. How did you use what you had access to thrive? If you have a bigger school with more opportunities, your application is going to look different than a person who had a smaller school with some less opportunities. If you had a bigger school, you might have had more access to internships, science Olympiad, national competitions, summer camps, and things like that. But if you're from a smaller school, this doesn't mean that you can just get away with not doing anything. If you're from a smaller school, you could leverage this to your advantage because you can capitalize on your weaknesses. For example, I was from a smaller school and my school didn't have a ton of resources in the arts and the performing arts. So instead of being like, oh, hey colleges, I really didn't do much in these areas, I sought out my own opportunities to create art. I wrote a movie and it went up on IMDb. And also, I fought for the arts all 4 years of high school, and I put that as my kind of passion project / one of my extracurriculars, and made some significant changes to my theater community with the help of other community members and teachers. Lastly, in context, probably the most important, what major or department are you applying for? If you are applying for theater, they're not going to compare you to mechanical engineering or chemical engineering or any type of engineering. They're going to categorize you into different groups. There's the engineers, there's the artists, there's everything in between, and more. Once you figure out the major or department or area of interest that you're applying for, they will compare you to other students in that department, and they will start looking for how you prove yourself in those areas. So this is kind of going to become your spike. You probably heard the term spike used before. It's kind of what makes your application you. It's like what your extracurriculars all point to. Usually they align with your major. They don't have to. Mine did. My spike was theater and performing, and I applied for theater and performing and film. Once you have that figured out, you're going to stick with that theme throughout your whole application. So moving on from context, we are going to talk about grades. Now, this is a hot topic right now. Bear with me. Your GPA does not have to be a 4.0 to be admitted. And a lot of people think it does, but trust, it does not. In fact, what you're going to do is you're going to type in your school, and you are going to say, let's say Harvard Common Data Set. And then you're going to click on it, and you are going to find their median GPA.
It can also show you how your college weighs each portion of your application, like how much importance they give to GPA, class rank, interviews if that's considered, or anything else. So look at that, and then look at the average of those statistics, such as GPA or standardized testing scores.
It's different for each school, like Columbia versus UPenn versus I don't know. But you guys have to understand that getting good grades doesn't get your foot in the door, but it might get you in the same state as the door. Every single person applying to these top colleges usually has really good grades. So having a 4.0 over a 3.9 unweighted is not going to make that much of a difference. It's probably not going to make any difference because in the admissions officer eyes, they're probably the same. It's what you do on top of that that will make you stand out and is what you write in your essays. If you have a lower GPA, if we're talking Ivy League level, I'm talking like 3.5. If you have like a 3.5, but like a 1600 on the SAT, you could be good. And vice versa, if you've got a 4.0 unweighted GPA, but like kind of a lower, like a 33 ACT, that's what I had, then it can make up for each other. The thing is, colleges really don't need any more students with perfect grades. If they want it, they can just admit somebody off the wait list who has a 1600. There's so many people with perfect SAT or ACT scores or GPAs that they reject. Literally, you need to figure out, what do you have that 1 billion other applicants don't have? Next on your application, the admissions officers are going to look at the courses you took. Like I mentioned, if you didn't have access to APs, they will not expect you to have a billion APs. But if you don't have APs, you likely have access to dual enrollment, which is taking courses at a community college, which is what I did. Almost all of my courses were dual enrollment. Mostly what they're looking for is that you're challenging yourself in your coursework and that you are picking courses that fit your major and your areas of interest. I did playwriting, what did I do? I did stage management and script analysis my senior year, which obviously aligned with my theater interests. But honestly, a lot of my courses were really easy. So if you don't have access to APs and you do have access to dual enrollment, you might have it a lot easier than people whose schools have like 16 APs and have to deal with all of that. So just keep that in mind. Next, honors. So at the Ivy League level, they look for national honors and excellence in anything. I had 2 national honors, but they were like the College Board recognition. They weren't they weren't like a competition or anything. But obviously having an honor or an award at the national level is very great to include on your application. It doesn't necessarily have to be with your major or your spike, but it is very good if it is. And then it goes on to regional, then it goes on to state, and then it can go down to local and school and lower. Focus on the ones that are in the bigger divisions like national, regional, and state. If you can score awards in these areas, highlight those over merit honor roll or dean's list or anything like that. Now we're talking about your extracurriculars. For your extracurriculars, you must focus on impact over quantity. At the Ivy League level, you need to format your extracurriculars in a specific way. You need to quantify the things that you do. For example, Diversity Club was a club that I was in, and I used a lot of semicolons, not full sentences, because the character limit is so short. But I also made sure to use numbers and show the impact that I made in this area. So I was the co-founder and president. The Diversity Club was one of the school's largest clubs, the only cultural club, and it was inclusive to all. And then in my description, I said I led meetings, have showcased 35 plus cultures, help cook cultural dishes, create presentations, peer share and study heritage, and spread cultural awareness. This shows impact. This does not use full sentences, but this shows impact. Obviously, I did theater all 4 years of high school, but instead of just being like, I did shows every single year, I quantified it. So in my description, I said 5 full-length shows a year, 4 showcases a year, superior OMEA rating for Italian aria solo, excellence in acting award at Junior Theater Festival in Atlanta. And also, this is 11 hours a week, 36 weeks a year. This is what I mean by quantifying. Just make sure you use your semicolons, don't use full sentences, make sure you use numbers, you show your impact, and you show your spike. I'm certain you did a lot of things during your high school career, but you need to focus on the extracurriculars that you had the most impact in. Potential is just as important as achievement. You need to have a bit of both, obviously, but potential shows more room for growth. And of course, if you have a little bit of success already in that, they can show that your growth will lead somewhere. Show excellence in your spike, in your ECs. Show excellence if your spike is writing, Have you written a book? Have you published poetry? What have you done? If your spike is engineering, have you done an internship? If you want to be a surgeon, have you worked at a hospital? I don't know. Something that aligns with your spike. Your extracurriculars need to align with your spike. They like to see you taking initiative, they like to see leadership, and they like to see you founding things and making change. So how are you making an impact on your community? How are you starting something? Maybe starting a nonprofit, starting a club. Are you president of any of these things? Are you secretary? Do you have a leadership position? And are you making change? How do you make the change in your community that you want to see? Now we're moving on to your main personal essay. I have a whole video about this if you really want to deep dive, but honestly, to summarize it all, show them how you've grown, show them what skills you're going to bring to their school, how do you think, and what will you add to their school. That's what you need to highlight in your main essay. You can show challenges you've overcome, things you've learned, but honestly, it's all about what you will bring to their school and how you have grown and how you will continue to grow. Now, your supplemental essays will focus on a little bit of a different aspect of this. Instead of really showing just your voice and sharing a piece of you, now it's about why do you actually want to go to this school in particular? Have you done your research? Do you know what the school has to offer, or are you just applying for the heck of it? They can tell. Now, instead of what you will add to the school, like in the Common App essay, they want to know what you intend to get from the school. You really got to focus on specifics within these schools and really cater those essays to their schools in particular. This is kind of an optional portion of most applications. It's your resume/supplemental materials. So this is kind of showing that extra bit of effort to really get in. It's not appropriate in all cases to include a resume or an extra supplement, but if you've done research and you've published a research paper, this is a great place to show that. It can strengthen your application, and if you're applying as a humanities major, I did a sample of poetry for Columbia and I did a demo of my acting and my singing. With that, I had 2 extra resumes. I had an acting resume and a writing resume. And for Northwestern, I just had my high school resume. Letters of recommendation. So you can't see these, obviously, because you have to sign the FERPA thing, but when I was asking my teachers to do mine, they asked me about my most important extracurriculars, and one of them even asked me what traits they wanted me to highlight in their letter of recommendation. So if you have this relationship with your teacher, if you can ask them to do this, ask them to highlight the parts of you that you're showing in other parts of your application. For example, if you're trying to highlight your initiative, you might suggest that your recommender talks about a nonprofit or a club that you have founded. If they are reinforcing what you already claim to have in your application, it is a testament to good character, to honesty, and can only really help you. Since I was from a small school, I had a pretty close relationship to most of my teachers. If you're from a bigger school, I really recommend that you ask teachers or people that you know very well who can attest to your personal qualities. You need to start developing these relationships and this trust between you and that teacher. Teachers who have seen you grow throughout the years in their class are also really, really great people to ask. Or if teachers have run an extracurricular thing that you participated in, that would be a great person to ask. People that you have personally added value to. Consider asking someone who works in your intended field of study in addition to your 2 teacher recommendations. Like if you've worked with an industry professional, I worked with a film director, I could have asked her. I didn't, I asked my voice coach to write me another one, a 3rd recommendation. But yeah, if you've done an internship, you can ask somebody you worked with there to just be another voice in that field, in that area, in your spike. If you have time still, and if you're not rushing this, you can build a good relationship with your teacher, your counselor, and industry professional for more than just getting a good word for them. Just honestly, they'd be great people to have in your life. You can see how you can add value to them, as well as you get value from them, and also they could write your recommendation. That's everything I have. This was a lot. I did spill the tea, but these are very important things. And I mean, getting into the Ivy League isn't easy, but if you understand that it's not down to your grades, it's not down to your test scores, it's down to your character, it might be a little easier than stressing yourself out over getting a 4.0 over a 3.9. You should really be focusing more on your impact in the community and what you want to bring to their school, because you won't be bringing academic excellence to your school. You just won't. Everybody there is academically excellent. You will be bringing you to your school, a unique characteristic of you, something from your background, just honestly, it's so cliche, but what makes you unique? And you don't have to play into that in every single supplemental essay. Like, you don't have to be like, I speak 25 languages, because I think the admissions officers can tell if you're trying to milk that out too much. That is a part of you, but if you don't feel like it is a very defining characteristic to you, you don't have to mention it every 2 seconds. Honestly, that's all I have. This is a lot to compile over what I've learned from getting in this past year, but I hope this has helped you. I think if I watched this when I was a year younger, it certainly would have helped me a lot, because I was freaking out over my ACT score. I was like, I have a 33 ACT, there's no way I'm getting in. And then I did, and I didn't apply test optional, so trust the process. I believe in you. Have a good day. Cheers.